Hey y'all, Pastor Emil here with another episode of Sweet Jesus. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Ice cream is sweet, but Jesus is far sweeter. Got Pastor Brock here, Brock Kane from Lutheran Church of the Pines in Waveland, Mississippi, back in here with us. And it's too early for ice cream, so we got our beverages of choice here. Coffee
for
the coffee man.
Just coffee, yeah.
And a little sweetener, sweeten it up.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I got some Earl Grey tea. Twinings, my favorite.
They make a very good black tea.
They do.
Yeah.
Put the rest of them to shame, really do. And to top it off, honey.
Mm.
And that's pretty sweet.
Yes, it is.
But not as sweet as Jesus.
Nope.
And that's why we're here.
That's right.
And we're doing our Christianity 101, what does it all mean series here, talking about the basics, slowly but surely plotting our way through Luther's small catechism, among other things that we started out with and maybe even go back to at some point. But today we're looking at the 8th Commandment. Did you know that before I just said
I did,
it?
actually.
Okay, good.
I almost didn't remember that I was coming here today, but I remembered we were on the 8th Commandment.
Because I don't think we said it once in the last however long we've been talking for
That's
20
true.
minutes or so. So
we're covering other important things.
Oh, yeah. Way more important things. Maybe not. I don't know. But we got it together, and here we go with the 8th Commandment. Maybe one, I actually, as I looked at the catechism, the newest version that Concordia Publishing House has kind of put together, I actually felt like they did a really good job with this particular one.
I agree. And looking over the new edition, there were some things that I liked that they put in there, some things that I thought were maybe a little unnecessary. But this is a commandment that I feel people can pretty easily agree on how to move forward with and apply to our lives. Mm-hmm. It's not that it's superficial or anything. There's much we can plumb the depths of here, but I don't think there's too much in the way of controversy here.
No, actually, I think everybody knows how important a reputation is, a good name is, the truth is, because they weaponize it.
Yes.
What's the latest canceling, right? Who got canceled most recently? I mean, just take your pick. That is people knowing that someone's reputation is so important that if we can do enough to destroy it, we can destroy them.
That's right.
And whatever we don't like about them that they are supposedly saying, or in some cases actually saying, or, there's a wide variety of things there. But the cancel culture is literally weaponizing a violation of the 8th Commandment in some ways.
And I think that's a name we've given to something that people have always done.
It's always, yeah.
It's...
societies, cultures, groups of people, tribes is the term,
very much so.
Today. Everybody's got a tribe. There's always been tribes. There'll probably always be tribes. I think tribes are becoming more potent. I think in part because people are probably less educated today, despite all their degrees and things like that. They're not educated to be discerning people. Or maybe it's not even so much that as it is we sort of our culture lets our emotions kind of go. Expressiveness is a very American thing. It's sort of always been an American thing, but even more so now. So people just kind of say what they want to say and do what they want to do and get outraged. And
that's interesting. That certainly happens. I've always thought of that as a rejection of our American DNA.
How do you
as
mean?
a way of pushing back against, and we've talked about this in here before, I think, about, how in our culture and society, our formation was very puritanical, reserved.
Okay.
Do not express those inner things that all of us experience. And so that, I think, very much defined our culture for generations. And I think where you see that kind of outward expression, that shaking our fists at the sky sort of thing, is a pushback against that.
I can buy that.
But it cultures change too.
Just so you know, I wasn't around 400 years ago when the Puritans arrived.
Oh, it's the glasses.
So, my experience of American culture is this, right? What we're in today. But that's a really good point, because I agree. When we talk about the 6th commandment, why do we have these sexual things? Why are they so focused on and lifted up and highlighted and all that kind of stuff? Well, because for a long time we sort of repressed it.
Right. Good word. Yes.
And what do? It's like a coiled spring. Did you use that?
I don't think so.
Maybe
I did.
Pressing it down, trying to keep it out, right? Keep it down. And then eventually it just kind of, and that's sort of what's happened. That's what the 60s was definitely all about.
Absolutely. And the 20s.
And the 20s.
And other little pockets of, social revolution, throughout. So what is this commandment again, by the way?
I don't think
we've gotten there yet.
So the 8th commandment, again, we number them a certain way, but for us, you shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. And then what does this mean? Again, we're looking at the Lutheran Small Catechism, Martin Luther's Small Catechism, his explanation here always has a negative and a positive. We should fear and love God so that we do not tell lies about our neighbor, betray him, slander him, or hurt his reputation, but defend him, speak well of him, and explain everything in the kindest way.
So really this kind of harkens us back to the 2nd commandment. You should not misuse the Lord's name. And we talked at length, I think, about that. And I know when I teach that commandment, I emphasize, that commandment is dealing with God's reputation. And how we think about and talk about and represent God affects his reputation in this world. And it's something you hold within your hands. Well, now he's directing us to our neighbors and saying, that applies to all of you. You and I are responsible for one another's reputation in a way. So what do you do with that, and how do you handle it?
Yeah, it's how do you handle? Are you looking at that from holding your neighbor's reputation, or hey, everybody has my reputation in their hands, what do I do?
Both.
Okay, well, I was just curious. If you were thinking of one first.
No, I think more specifically, if you look at the action of the command, it I think compels us to think more about how I handle my reputation or my neighbor's reputation.
Yeah. It's sort of hard to handle your own reputation, other than to just, I think
that's what the other commandments are about.
Don't do stupid stuff, or as Paul tells Timothy, an overseer or an elder or a pastor should be above reproach.
That's right.
Right, like you have to...
Like us.
Yeah. We don't do anything wrong. No, but there is in some ways, being a little bit bad, and being human actually does help.
Oh, absolutely.
But at the same time, not being a total jerk or other adjective I was thinking of.
Rule of thumb.
You
remembered there was a microphone in front of you.
Yeah, and I went, we're live, right? Yeah, so, right. I think the only thing we can do is do the best we can for us regarding our own reputation, to think about how important that is, and to think about the interactions we have with other people and how that does help shape our reputation. But really the one that we have the most control over is kind of what we say about other people. Which
then, in turn, influences how people see us.
It does.
In the past, when I've taught this commandment, one of the ways that I've kind of emphasized the magnitude of what's going on here, because I think this is a commandment that a lot of people look at and go, oh yeah, that's very true, that's good advice, and then skip on to something they feel is more impactful. I think this is quite possibly the commandment that yields the gravest consequences for our everyday lives.
Oh, yeah.
And what I would do is I would put up on a whiteboard, let's say I'm dealing with your reputation and how I talk about you in front of other people, to other people, or talk to you in front of other people. And so, you'd start creating points of connection that are all potentially impacted by this commandment. And those points of connection just continue to expand outward and outward and outward. And it's a tremendous amount of damage that can be done with one comment said to the right person at the right time.
Or the wrong person at the wrong time.
Same thing, yeah.
Depending on your perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say this is actually probably the commandment that most often makes ministry impossible. Right? I mean, because everybody's got a gripe about something. People don't always agree, but that's okay in the end. Do we just kind of fall in line, shut up, and move ahead together? I've had some really, really awful experiences with this. And, sometimes really just thinking about what you're hearing other people are supposedly saying about you, and in plenty of circumstances, I'm like, yeah, I believe they're saying that.
Yeah.
It's not true. And this urge to try to set the record straight can be very strong.
Yes.
Very strong. And if that doesn't tell you how important this commandment is, then I don't know what will.
Yeah. Yeah. This is something that every person in every setting and context of their life is going to have to struggle with and wrestle with,
And it's a spiraling thing, right? So like you hear about something someone has said about you, and then you want to set the record straight, and then you get sucked in, and first off, the fact that you're talking about it just adds sort of fuel to the fire a little bit.
Yeah.
And then now you're tempted to bring up things that would damage the other person because you have to undermine their credibility in order to try to lift up your credibility, or at least that's what we're thinking in those moments, right? And sometimes the best thing to do is just to shut up.
Yeah.
It really is.
And it's easy to recognize that when you're looking at it from the outside. My wife is a high school teacher, and not only that, but she sponsors a team, and so she comes home and she talks about these mostly young ladies that she works with, who usually are a pretty good cohesive group. She's good at facilitating that, but sometimes stuff comes up and gets in the way, and her struggles with that. And looking at it from the outside, it's easy for me to say, well, this one needs to maybe, back off from this. This one needs to do, and this one just needs to shut up entirely, and it's easy to prescribe. But then, I remember having one of these conversations with her a long time ago, and then maybe the next day going to work and finding myself caught up in this conflict, and realizing at the end of the day that what I was experiencing was precisely what had been described to me about some high school students, and it's not something that is unique to any individual or group. We all experience it and have to be conscious of this and put in some effort.
Yeah. One of the things that I found, as I was kind of in the midst of lots of chatter, and no one really interested in setting the record straight, so to speak. Not that I was maybe completely without fault, but, I certainly didn't feel like it was a balance, But one of the things that I learned through that experience was the amount of suffering that Jesus actually went through. So we often think about the nails, but that's not even, that's the least of his pain.
Yeah.
You hear stories about, I think, who's it? Cromwell, a guy in Britain around Reformation-ish time. And supposedly, he was involved with the church and all that was going on there. And the king or somebody kind of made him try to get in line and sign an agreement that he was going to just accept the new teachings of the church or whatever it was. And then not that long afterward, he watched a couple of people burn at the stake for their faith, refusing to sort of get in line with whatever the king was trying to do. And he revoked his whatever it was that he signed, the agreement that, hey, I confess what no, I did it wrong. And then the story is, as they're beginning to stoke the flames that they're going to use to burn him alive, he takes his right hand and he puts it in the fire until it burns off, because he says, let the hand that committed the grave sin against the Lord go first. Like, I mean, we mean squirm at physical pain because we're so used to not having to experience it.
Right.
But there are some pretty and then, before Jesus ever shows up in Israel, there's a lot of conflict with Judaism, Israel and the Romans. Some of the things that they did to people, the Jews, horrific. And they did it. They accepted the consequences and refused to sort of bow to Roman emperors, both figuratively and literally. And they're like, okay, fine, we'll cut out your tongue.
Right.
Oh, okay. And we're going to do it in front of your mother. And your mother is there saying, don't you dare forsake the Lord. Right? Like, that's pretty amazing stuff. So Jesus getting a few nails in his hand and, his feet, right? But when you have all kinds of people making up lies about you, bringing charges against you, and you're the perfect and holy, sinless Son of God.
Well, when he weeps over Jerusalem, he's there to offer hope to the world, beginning with a nation, beginning with a people who only existed because God put them where they were to facilitate what Jesus was going to do. And throughout history, God describes it in explicit detail. And so if anyone should know better, if anyone should be rejoicing at what is happening here, it should be these people. And yet they're lost, they're confused, they're angry, they're making things up to feel better about themselves. And it's that grief that we see there. It's powerful.
Yeah. A lot of those other people I just talked about, they didn't go weeping, and they went boldly and bravely into their demise. So what is it about Jesus that gets him to weep? It's this relational pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
that's what's at the heart of this commandment.
Yeah.
That's what it does. It tears them up.
There's an awful lot, like I said, in this version of the catechism, the outline and everything that they've got there. God commands us to speak truthfully and charitably about our neighbors so that others view them in the best possible light. What are some ways by which a person's reputation is damaged in our society? Well, hey, I like this guy, but I don't really like this guy, or I had a bad experience. It's part of capitalism a little bit too, like the best contractor, the best service provider.
Social and economic Darwinism. You know.
Yeah. So in some ways I generally try not to speak ill, right? But I think the thing that we often forget too is speaking positively. Like, if we have something positive to say, we probably should. And I think that's we're more likely to complain than we are
absolutely
to say something positive. And actually, the first thing they've got here talks about Mark 14:3-9. See how Jesus defends and praises the woman who anointed him. I think it's actually a similar story to what's in John 12. And they're all looking like, what is this woman doing? Doesn't she know how much that thing costs? You know, how about we could sell that and give to the poor? And he says, hey, don't you know you always have the poor with you? She did this for me. She loves me. She's anointing me for burial. So he's speaking up, you know, and that was back to my whole experience earlier. Like, if somebody would have said, hey, and there were some people who did, but, you know, it wasn't.
But that's
the
not
people
what
that
stands
we needed.
out.
Yeah, that wasn't the people that sort of we needed them needed to do that, and it's not what stands out, right?
Yeah.
It's all the other stuff. You think the negative parts, but any other thoughts on how?
Well, I mean, this is one. I mean, I think we've summarized it quite well. I mean, you could follow this down several rabbit holes. I think. So where is the biggest danger for us today? There's probably a few ways of answering that, but I think many of us who are at all in tune with what's going on in our society would say our online presence, you know, and why has it become such a festering sack of snakes, you know, to put yourself out there on the web and become part of this community? What happened? And honestly, I read something about this or saw it somewhere a while back that, you know, in the earliest days of when the internet started to become accessible to everyone and everyone was using it for a lot of different things, it was a tremendously positive place. There was a lot of good happening there, and then you had social media, and it started off as a very positive place.
But leave it to humans to screw everything up.
What changed almost overnight was on Facebook and Twitter the addition of the share feature.
Okay. And so not the like button.
No, the share. So you can take something that someone else has posted, something that someone else has shared.
So the viral nature of
and now
social media.
What we have is information, true or false, rocketing through the online community with absolutely zero accountability for its origins. Yeah. And I think that speaks a great deal to what this has all become. Accountability for what we say. Mm-hmm. And that's what this commandment is all about. We are absolutely accountable for everything we say to and about other people.
Well, yeah, there's such a problem with that. I mean, because the news isn't even accountable for what they say.
I agree.
I mean, you could say that on both sides, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I'm an equal opportunity offender in that regard. You know, neither side is really telling us the truth.
There's $1 billion lawsuit in the works about that right now.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me more. It's relevant.
Fox News is being sued by the company that made the voting machines in the last election, the electronic voting machines. And because of the rumors that were being spread about the election, they lost a tremendous amount of business. So who's accountable for that?
This is totally relevant to what we're talking
absolutely.
about. Right.
You know, and you know, since, well, it's all come out in legal discovery anyway, the head of that empire and many of the people that you see on TV there in discovery, their private messages have come out, and it turns out that they all never believed any of these rumors in the first place.
And then they just kept sharing them.
They were sharing it for the attention that they were getting from their audience.
Yeah.
So at sort of a, you know, macrocosm of what you and I experience in our daily lives.
Well, and that's, you know, Paul, Galatians 1:10, I think. So am I trying to please God or men?
Yeah.
Right. And how often is that? I mean, that's everything. We're more concerned about offending people or losing the, you know, the bright lights. And
the validation and affirmation.
Or the financial rewards that come with it.
That too.
I mean, just, you know, stuff like this, doing this, puts us out there.
Absolutely.
And when we do that, you know, there's a part of me all the time that's always kind of like, well, how do I have to massage the image, you know?
We do this on Sunday.
Yeah, that's right.
You know?
That's right.
If we were joking earlier about this, and I know that on Sunday, there's this switch that goes in my brain where I become aware that I have a microphone strapped to my chest. And,
especially if you go to the bathroom.
Yes,
Right?
yes. I triple check that little light. Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, I actually talked about this on Wednesday, Ash Wednesday. There's a book. It's called What's So Amazing About Grace by Philip Yancey.
I've come across it at some point.
He's a great author. This is one of my favorite books. Actually, somebody, when I was on vicarage, my internship year back in 2008 into 2009, so fall of 08 until summer of 09. And there was a guy, they did this secret saint thing where if you wanted to be a part of this, you put your name in a hat, and then somebody was sort of managing it, and they hooked people up with secret saints that put stuff in their mailbox, little notes of encouragement, little gifts, little things like that through Advent, maybe, I think it was. And my secret saint gave me a copy of this book, and it was an awesome book. I've read it more than once. I don't know how many times, but I pick it up every now and then just to get little tidbits out of it. And one of the things that stood out to me, that still stands out to me, that I actually used on Wednesday, is he has this idea of upstairs church and downstairs church. And he talked about how I think it was when he was growing up, like his home church, upstairs church was Sunday morning. Everybody put on their Sunday best. Coat and tie, dresses, smiles, big smiles, you know, all over. Everybody being nice and kind to one another, not doing anything wrong, being good about keeping their mouth shut, just all kinds of stuff like that. But downstairs church, that was the basement, the church basement. And that's where the recovery groups met. And he believed, and I agree with him, that those communities are often church-like.
Oh, absolutely.
In fact, they're probably more like what Jesus envisioned church should be like.
Well, that's because that's where you actually get to see him at work.
Well, you get to see him at work, but because people aren't massaging their reputation.
Exactly.
They're not trying to put on this front like, hey, I want people to see me a certain way.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, and there's great grace and beauty in that. When the makeup and the bunting comes off of Christians, the upstairs Christians, that's when it's scary. You know, I'll never forget.
Because they're trying to protect what they thought the image was.
No, I remember many years ago there was a concert on the coast in the big Coliseum in Biloxi. It was one of these things where like 10, 15 Christian bands and artists were there, and so there was a handful of us that met there from our congregation and went, and concert was fantastic. You know, all the music wasn't necessarily for me, but there was great sense of the spirit there, the community that was gathering together in there. It was great to see so many people, you know, sharing in this, and you really felt in there as if you were part of one amazing thing that was happening. And then we left, and all of those people tried to leave the parking lot at the same time. And more than one of my fellow Christian brothers reached a hand out a window to tell me I was number one in the parking lot. You know?
Oh, so it's not just New York?
No, it is not.
New York is not the only place
It is not. You live in Slidell. You should know that by now.
It is the state bird of New York. I will say that. I I use that quite often.
That's very clever.
But we're so concerned. So if we get upset about, Fox News is in the courts, right?
Yeah, they're in the crosshair right now, but it'll be somebody else tomorrow.
And they are more interested in the opinions of others. And, I think that's instructive for us. We don't want to go, hey, these awful human beings, look what they did. That's what we're all doing.
Absolutely.
We're all putting on some sort of front. And I think the challenge of Lent, Ash Wednesday, is to be honest about who we really are.
That's exactly right.
Something's wrong with you.
To take those blinders off and, to start thinking about... So all of these commandments, and this one in particular, we're dealing with how we manage thinking about our reputations and the reputations of people around us. Another way of saying that is where we stand with people and where they stand with us. Where do we stand with God, and why?
Not because we have a perfect reputation, or not because our reputation is perfect, but we have Jesus's perfect reputation.
That's right. And so that's enough. That's good enough for you and I to have a fellowship and a bond with the Lord. And so how does that change how we look at one another and how we help others come to think about themselves? Because when we do things or say things that damage the reputations of others, we are affecting how they think of themselves. You can convince someone they're a piece of garbage. You can. Yeah, it's especially when someone does something bad.
Yeah.
If your entire approach is constant finger wagging, then you'll eventually win and convince them that, yeah, I'm a piece of garbage. I just can't do anything right. And so they stop trying, and they accept this idea of themselves. And that creates a new person. But you and I, we have a new life. We have a new identity. And if we can help others come to know that and let that affect how they think about themselves, then we're creating something different.
Who I am becoming in Christ.
Yeah.
Not there yet.
Yeah.
Right. Philippians 1:6.
Yeah.
I'm sure of this, the God who began a good work in you will bring it to completion on the day of Jesus Christ.
But I am also fully justified now by faith.
And keep in mind, the finger wagger is just as much a piece of garbage as anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, Jesus really disliked those people more than anyone else because they made it seem as if they were not.
And that's why you do the finger wagging. The more of that I do,
the less people are looking at me.
That's right.
They're looking at the person I'm wagging
I'm
my
going to keep
finger at.
making noise about you, to distract people from me.
And, so there's a ton of examples in here. I mean, we've got Proverbs 22, a good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, and favor is better than silver or gold. Ecclesiastes 7:1, good name is better than precious ointment, but not at the expense of... Sometimes having a good name is, hey, when I screw up, I own it.
Yeah.
That's part of, I think,
right.
Actually, people are willing to come to you and say, hey, how do we do this better? You don't take everything so personally.
Sure.
We don't want to tell lies about people. We don't want to make things up. But sometimes, gossip is true, usually.
There's an element of it.
Gossip is, it can be used for evil, but sometimes you're just saying things that are better left unsaid.
Yeah.
Just to tear somebody down.
Well, it's you don't have a tin can in here, do you? I have a great illustration for that, but
a great illustration of the tin can.
No, it's if
the
cylinder,
yeah.
The cylinder.
We got a cylinder here. So like here it's a circle, here it's this is a trapezoid.
Imagine it's a rectangle.
Yeah, imagine it's a rectangle.
And in both cases, the shapes that you're seeing are absolutely true,
but they're not.
But they're not the truth.
Yeah.
And that's what this is getting at. I can say something true about you that might completely destroy your reputation in front of other people. I have quite a list, actually. Not really. I left that book in my office. But that is not the truth.
I'm sensing a bird.
You're number one, buddy.
I'm sensing a bird.
So, when we deal with the reputations of others, it's and this gossip, the rumor mill, those are all very selective ways of talking about people, and they are put forth for, the purpose of our agenda.
Now, this doesn't mean that we don't ever say things about people that are bad.
Yeah.
Our society is in a moment where it's becoming easier to do that.
Sure.
The Me Too movement a few years ago, George Floyd, talking about racial issues, challenges that still exist because of the past. I always struggle with the systemic racism thing because I ask, what law should we change? I don't get laws that are explicitly racist. So it's bias in the systemic bias now, but it is creating an ongoing gap between different types of folks in America.
I think it's just keeping the gap where it is.
Yeah, it's nothing. Yeah. It hasn't changed as much as it probably should have.
Right.
And but all those things have forced us into this culture where we're sort of constantly bringing out the negative in a way, and that's why I like sort of the last part here.
Yeah.
They talk about speaking the truth in love, and what does that mean? And I think Paul in Philemon, which sensitive topic there, slave, master, and sending the slave back to his master and telling the master basically to set him free, but he wants him to do it.
But it's your choice.
Yeah. So, but when you read it, he is just so over the top, trying to dance around it, and he doesn't come straight at you. There's there's a book, Building a Discipling Culture, and there's some helpful terms in there. He's talking invitation and challenge. And the example is, when you're trying to get a horse to tame a horse, right? There's really harsh ways of doing that. But then if you look at how they do it in the wild, when they invite a new wild horse into their group, and there's a name for it, I can't think of it at the moment, but they have this like standoff where the head horse in the group kind of head on challenge, right, and then invitation, sort of exposing the vulnerable part.
Gotcha.
And then the horse comes closer, and then this, and then the horse stops, and then the horse comes closer, and this, until finally so invitation and challenge. So Paul in that letter is constantly, he's challenging, but he's also got this invitation. He's saying, I love you, and I've done so much for you, and I would do it again, but hey, because I've done so much for you, I can ask you this, and I could command you, but I'm not going to. And it's like, so
I just want you to be thinking in these terms.
This dance.
Well, and that's the whole, if we speak challenging words in love, or speak on challenging subjects, as you brought up, the aim should be healing and reconciliation.
That is not the way it happens most of the time.
That's often not the way it happens. Well, something at the very beginning of our conversation today, you mentioned cancel culture. So what is that exactly?
It's weaponizing this.
It is,
concept.
But to what end? It started as a way of highlighting negative behaviors that needed to be called out. And, well, great, now what? Well, now we're just shutting these people out.
Shunning.
We're shunning. It is an accepted set of boundaries that the people are saying you either live up to or you don't. It's a morality. We live in a fanatically moral society.
most of the most fanatically moral are not even Christian.
That's true.
They hate us.
It's true, but that doesn't mean it's not a morality. We live in a very moral society. And I guess
selectively moral society.
All moral societies are selective, whether it's our morality or someone else's.
Christian community is not supposed to be.
I don't know if I would agree with that.
I don't think it's supposed to be selectively moral.
Well, okay, selectively in the sense that I get to kind of pick and choose the things. I see what you're saying.
That's why people get mad at us.
Right, exactly.
Because we are
do that.
selectively moral.
Yes.
You beat your wife and you're an alcoholic and you're molesting children. Come on back.
Yeah, as long as you
do
vote
something
the right
else.
way and
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
I think the lesson in all of this is that morality is not the solution.
Mm-hmm.
Treating one another with grace and compassion is the solution, because where that happens, that's where healing takes place. Where shunning and exclusion take place, you only just continue to widen that gap you were talking about.
The irony is most people that participate so vociferously.
Good word.
I couldn't think of a substitute for it. And I was like, why am I going to use this enormously, like, what am I doing that for?
It's your podcast, man.
Just showing off my vocabulary. But most of the people so vociferously, canceling people, they are excommunicating people in a way
exactly what
the church hasn't done for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they're doing. And, if that, I do actually think maybe now, that I'm talking about it, I think there are people, they would welcome these people back after a satisfactory amount of penance, to use right?
Once you've been sufficiently punished.
Hey, I've been educated. I see the error of my ways, all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, sometimes people are canceling people for purely political reasons.
Oh, absolutely.
And so they do like you were talking about with the cylinder.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this is the story. This is the truth. This is the whole truth and nothing but the truth. It's
Only
a circle.
an idiot would say that's anything but a circle.
Only an idiot. Must be a Democrat, must be a Republican, must be a
fill in the blank.
Fox News watcher or a CNN watcher or whatever the opposite is. And then you go to the other news channel and they say, it's a square trapezoid, actually, really.
Those liars over there were trying to say this is a circle, but you can clearly see
look, it's a trapezoid.
Man, you know how long it's been since I took geography?
Or how about this one? We'll do it this way. It's a square. It's a square. It's a, 3 by 3 square. No, it's not. It's I'm trying to, because it's backwards on the screen, No, it's a 1/2 inch by 3 inch rectangle.
There you go.
Right? Is that getting the point better now?
Yes, much better. I was content pretending this was a rectangle, but,
when I looked at the screen, my OCD kicked in gear, I guess.
I know. I didn't want you to get mad and cancel me.
But so speaking the truth in love, I heard one time that if you have something negative to say to someone, like if you have criticism, and again, it's difficult. It's two things to think about: our cultural, societal issues of speaking out against wrong and injustice and all that kind of stuff. But then it's a different thing altogether to bring that into your personal life, which I think is actually a huge problem, because that's how, you see stuff on social media all over the place, Instagram, Facebook. Hey, when you go home for Thanksgiving or Christmas, make sure you really piss off your family by being extra angry.
Whatever. Yeah.
About whatever the topic happens to be. But if you really want someone to hear the truth, first off, you have to be open to hearing the truth yourself.
That's exactly right.
Jesus in Matthew 7, get the log out of your own eye before you reach to try and get the speck out of your own eye. Are you
willing to see the rectangle?
Are you willing to see the rectangle? Are you willing to go back and forth a little bit? Are you willing to allow them to inspect you and find your faults? Because it's like I can't see the thing on my, right? Unless I've got this, I can't see what's on the side of my mouth. Like, oh, you got a little schmutz right here, right? I need you to tell me that. You are much better at seeing my faults than I am. Are we willing to say that about other people? And then when we actually speak, I heard that Tim Keller, he's just got a great way with words in a lot of different ways. I know he talks about how speaking the truth in love means, are you willing to say it in the only way they will hear it?
Yeah.
Do you know the only way they will hear it? Like, so do you have a relationship with them, close enough relationship? And then are you willing to say that? Or are you just so ticked off that you just want to blow up the whole thing?
Right. Yeah, I honestly, I used to hear that phrase a good bit. I'm saying this with love, and it got to the point that I actually hate that phrase. Mm-hmm. I really do. Because
most people do.
Many times I heard someone say, well, I'm going to say this in love, and then say something that left no door open for a dialogue.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. And it's extremely frustrating.
Are we being open and honest now? Great. What you just said was not done in love. So
yeah,
go away and come back and try again. I mean, that's the response, isn't it?
It's what it winds up being. Yeah.
And maybe the New York State bird makes an appearance. But
we don't do that down here. Oh, wait.
Actually, that's one of the things about being down here I love is it does feel a lot more like home in some ways. Not that way. A lot more chill people around here, but I'm sure there are people that do. I've definitely been the target.
Oh, if you've driven I-12, yeah. Might have been me.
Oh, man, it was so funny. One time there was a guy... I mean, there was nothing that I could say to justify. I mean, he just did something so stupid, nearly killed me and him both. And, just pulled right out in front of me from a stop, going like 60 miles an hour. And I just laid on my horn like, what are you doing? I'm on my brake we get onto this highway, sort of a service road sort of thing going onto it. And, I get to go around him, and he's just, he's got this glare like,
right, what's your problem?
And he just flips me off, and I'm looking at him like, oh my God, that's like one of my childhood friends' dads right now. Does he know that it's me? Does he know that it was me? It was in my first car. I don't know. I had to be somewhere between 18 and 17 and 20 maybe. So...
I heard a great story about a moment like that concerning a man who was the pastor of this congregation about a generation ago.
Oh boy, are we violating the 8th Commandment right now?
Quite possibly, but I'm going to tell it anyway. It was something very similar. He was driving through one of these neighborhoods right around here at a stop sign, and someone else was at the stop sign, and I think he went to go. And, one of those confusing moments everybody gets into where you don't know whose turn it is, and the other person just really laid on the horn and stuck their hand out the window and gave him one of those. And as he passed by, the person was glaring at him and trying to get a good look and realized it was one of his congregation members.
Oh, Pastor, I was just letting you know how much I love you. You're number one.
That's right.
You're my favorite pastor.
That's right.
Oh, I don't know if I'd be that offended. I'd be like, man,
that's hilarious.
Now, I know, and I'm okay with it.
Yep.
Like, it is what it is.
It is, man.
We're just we're just humans trying to make it through this crazy, crazy world. So, what else do we have here? I mean, there's so many stories listed in here. There's some good Old Testament stories. Yeah. There's some good New Testament ones. Some Naboth's vineyard. I don't know how familiar you are with that. Ahab goes to this guy Naboth. He's like, hey, I'm the king. I want your I want your vineyards. Sell it to me, or I'll give you an even better one somewhere else. And he's like, no, this is my family's land. And this is God's land given to me and my family. I can't do that. And the plan becomes his wife Jezebel, Ahab's wife Jezebel, uses this, weaponizes the reality of reputation.
That's right.
And gets two people to sit down to dinner and they have this big feast. They plan this feast. They plan to put Naboth in this one spot, and they plan to hurl accusations at him in front of all these people about him cursing God and the king. And they take him outside and stone him to death. Oh, I can have the vineyard now. Right? So we do this for personal gain in a lot of ways, beyond just our sense of need to feel important and special and validated and not as awful as we really are.
Right.
There's some other ones. Somebody speaking, David and Saul, they have this thing going on where David's hiding and somebody helps David, and then somebody lets the cat out of the bag, and then Saul slaughters the priest and all his family and more priests. That whole village gets like, what? All because somebody, he didn't have to say anything, you probably have this, I don't know, maybe. I don't want to speak for you. I'm just saying you're a pastor. I'm a pastor. We talked about this pastor gathering we had.
Yeah.
What do they like most when we let them talk to each other? Why? Because we let them talk.
Yes.
Because that's what pastors do.
Yes.
And so as a pastor, you're always trying to find a way to say something, to plug something, to plug Jesus, to plug an event, whatever, right? Some sort of scriptural knowledge to reinforce a topic in Bible study or a topic in worship, in a sermon, right? You're doing this constantly, and sometimes the best thing to do in life is to just shut up.
Yeah.
So,
I think the great challenge behind this commandment is to question, when it comes to my relationships with the people around me, what do I actually have control of? What am I able to affect versus what I'm not? And I think a lot of times we lie to ourselves about, saying or doing this isn't really going to have that much of an impact on someone else. And time and time and time again, we're proven wrong. And yet we still continue to try to convince ourselves.
That's true both positively and negatively, meaning...
Absolutely.
So sometimes, we're convincing ourselves that it's okay to say something. But then the flip side is we're convincing ourselves that what we say wouldn't matter.
That's right.
In helping, right? Speaking positively, right? So again, we've got the positive and the negative thing in each of these commandments. And I can tell you just personally, my lived experience from like birth to today, 41 plus years, almost 42 years, having someone have your back, I mean, you remember those people.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
You definitely remember those people, and it does make it seem a little less dark when you're in something.
Yeah, I think the hardest funeral I've ever done was for a man who was a member, a leader, and a friend, and somebody I knew I could always count on to listen when I needed, to challenge me, but also to appreciate what I had to say, and I knew he was looking out for me, and that when he was around other people, my reputation was safe in his hands. And that's, you're right, that sticks with you in a very special and unique way.
Yeah. They're few and far between, those kinds of folks. So be one of those people.
That's what we can do.
But also treasure the people in your life that are like that. Because, few and far between. And it's more precious, right? Someone that will handle your reputation with care is someone that I think these couple of verses I read earlier, Proverbs 22:1, a good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, and favor is better than silver or gold. It is better to have people like that in your life than the people that will shower you with gifts and flattery and validation and all that kind of stuff. And it's just one of those things like, okay, someone's being really nice to me right now. You know, you learn this as a path, like, okay, I don't know how to deal with this. I'm triggered in some way. I'm also glad that someone's saying nice things about me. I mean, who isn't?
Yeah.
But what are you after? You know? So, final thoughts?
I think we've summarized quite a bit. We are accountable for everything that we say. And we're accountable to the people we say things about.
Yeah. And God's word is powerful. It does stuff.
That's right.
But so does our word. We're made in the image of God. So do our words.
Yeah.
The word of God is a two-edged sword.
Yes, it is.
Piercing, right? Dividing flesh and marrow and bone. I forget. I'm not quoting it right now. It's Hebrews 4:12-ish, something like that. Our words can do the same thing.
That's right.
So, all right, y'all. Hey, thanks for tuning in with us. Make sure you like and share and subscribe and watch your mouth. And we'll catch up with you again real soon. God bless you. We'll see you.